Testing, testing, 1, 2. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to make a video talking about the Viltrox speed boosters for Micro Four Thirds. So I have both versions here. I have the Canon to Micro Four Thirds version and I have the Nikon F-mount to Micro Four Thirds version. And I wanted to test them both out and see which one is better. I had originally bought the Nikon F-mount version because it is around $60 cheaper. I believe the Canon version comes in at about $139 and this one's only like 78 bucks, and you can get it even cheaper used. All of my Rokinon lenses are Nikon mount because you can find the Nikon mount versions for pretty cheap. So I thought I'd give this one a try, and I was very happy with it. I was happy with the image quality. I thought it gave a very competitive image quality, especially compared to something more expensive like the Metabones speed boosters, which is sort of the industry standard for focal reducers. But I thought that this was very competitive. However, I began to see where I went wrong because EF mount is just so much more compatible with everything. It's so much easier to adapt other lenses to, and there's more lenses for, there's not a lot of lenses, especially cinema lenses, for F mount. So I decided to go ahead and pick up the EF mount version just so I could compare them and then make a video about it. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what makes these speed boosters different, and then I shot some comparisons and we're going to look over those and see what the real key differences are in image quality, if there are any. Now let's start with the Nikon version. So the Nikon version is only $78, which is about $60 cheaper than the EF version. And this is because it does not have electronic connection or electronic pass-through. Basically meaning that you can't use things like autofocus, or you can't adjust iris and stuff like that. You can't use auto lenses with the speed booster. It does have a ring here for adjusting aperture, so you do get a little functionality out of it, but mostly these are just made for manual lenses. And the Blackmagic doesn't even have autofocus, so that was fine by me. All I really needed was the glass element, and the glass is very good quality. Now the EF version seems slightly bigger. I think the lens mount for EF is slightly larger. There is no adjustable ring for aperture because there is actually electronic connections in the adapter, so you can use autofocus and adjust your iris in your camera. Another difference about this is that it has a little micro USB port right here for software updates, and that is something that the Nikon version does not have. So overall, this is just a more well-built and well-thought-out adapter, and it's more automatic, I guess you could say, while the Nikon version is more just for manual, so you can use a lot more lenses and have a lot more flexibility with the EF version. And that is the reason that this costs $60 more. So both of these focal reducers are 0.71 times magnification, meaning that on a Micro Four Thirds sensor, they give about a 1.42 crop instead of the traditional 2 times crop. However, since I'm using the Blackmagic, and the Blackmagic sensor isn't a traditional Micro Four Thirds sensor, I believe it has like a crop factor of 1.9 or something, so it's slightly different because their sensor's slightly wider than traditional Micro Four Thirds. So that's going to have a crop of about 1.34, so it's just going to be slightly wider. However, this is a bit of a compromise because you're not going to see the best image quality that you can get because these are not optimized for that slightly wider sensor. So you may get some like edge fall off, or you may see different artifacts than on a speed booster meant for that sensor. Now Metabones did make speed boosters that were specifically meant for that wider sensor. However, I really can't justify spending $400 to $600 on one of those speed boosters when I do believe that these Viltrox speed boosters do a pretty damn good job. Alright, so now that I've talked about all the physical differences of these speed boosters, let's go over the image quality tests that I shot, and let's compare the actual image quality. Alright, so I have Batman here, and this was shot on my Rokinon 35mm, which with no speed booster is about a 70mm. So this is no speed booster, wide open at t1.5. So we can see it's reasonably sharp, wide open, especially if we come over here and look at if we compare it to the Nikon speed booster at wide open, you can see a lot more halation, and it's just overall way softer than without a speed booster. But you can also see the difference in your field of view. This one is much more wider. You can see his feet and above his head, and you can see the table here. So you can really see that the difference that the speed booster makes on your crop. But yeah, this is pretty fuzzy. Let's compare that to the Nikon stopped down. So I shot these in Rec 709 straight out of the Blackmagic, just so we would have some base color and I wouldn't have to color grade, and you could also see the color coming straight out of camera, so there wouldn't be any differences there. But also the dynamic range isn't going to be as good, so you can see quite a bit of noise in some of these shots. So this is the Nikon speed booster stopped down to T5.6, and you can see it's pretty sharp, sharper than the wide open shot here. Let's go ahead and get so this is the Nikon stop down. Let's go ahead and get the Canon stop down so we can really compare these two shots here. And yeah, from what I'm noticing, these shots are fairly similar. I'm really spotting, I don't know if it's a problem with focus, but I may prefer the Canon actually over here on the right side. It just seems a little more sharper, especially in his face area right here. Like I said, that could be a fault with the focus, but I don't know, maybe not. I don't know, there's something about the Canon that looks just a little bit sharper. Let's look at wide open on the Canon. Yeah, once again, I mean, wide open on these lenses, you are getting an extra stop of light with the speed booster, so it's just going to look really soft wide open with the speed booster. But you can fix this by stopping down to about 2.8. That'll clear up most of this, and if you really want to get really good sharpness, 4 and beyond gives you a really sharp image. And we're still retaining a lot of that depth of field. If we go back and compare, which this is at 70 mil, but you can see this is basically a 50 mil and this is 70 mil over here with no speed booster. And you can really see the difference in your out of focus area here. They're about the same, even though this one is wider. So you are getting a lot more depth of field out of the speed booster without having to get closer to your subject. So yeah, from looking at these tests, I am very happy with this image here. Honestly, there is not much of a difference in the glass between the Canon and the Nikon, but for some reason I just am preferring the Canon. I don't know why. But based on those tests, I believe that I will be keeping the Canon version instead of the Nikon, just because I'll have that extra flexibility of shooting with a lot more lenses. So yeah, I would recommend the same. I would recommend going with the EF version. Even though this one is cheaper, you can still find the EF for around $100. So I'd say, you know, go ahead and pay a little extra and get the EF version. And the great thing is that you can actually adapt Nikon F-mount lenses to EF, and that's what I've done. So I didn't have to go out and buy new lenses. I can just adapt my Nikon lenses to EF and everything's fine. I just bought little $20 adapters on Amazon with just these little metal rings that go over your Nikon lenses and adapt them to Canon. So that's really great that you can have that flexibility of shooting on all kinds of different lenses and also using your automatic Canon lenses, especially with other Micro Four Thirds cameras like the GH5 that actually do support autofocus. So yeah, I would say that the Viltrox speed boosters are both very good. Go out and buy this Canon version. If you are looking for a speed booster, I would highly recommend it. So yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.